My name is Tracy Manson. I'm a certified professional dog trainer and certified behavior consultant. I live in Utah if this is your first time joining us. So tonight, when you get on the chat, please give me your name and where you're from, and then I will enter you into the drawing, which we will do around 7 to 7:30 or whenever we finish. And then if we have more questions after the drawing, I'm happy to answer those as well. So hopefully we have a good group tonight. How many of you caught the podcast that Devin was doing with Groomer? In fact, I did not catch the Groomer's name, but I caught the first like 5 minutes of it, and then I had to get ready for this. So, oh, thanks, Julie. So to do this, I have to have my hair braided, and I have to keep it in for like 2 to 3 days. And then take it out and it'll be curly. I wish I had naturally curly hair, but I don't. So yeah, whenever I go get it trimmed, I have her braid it, and then, because I can't braid my own hair, and then she'll braid it, I'll keep it in for a while and then take it out. And then I get curls for like 2 days, 2 3 days. So anyway, thank you. It's actually easier because I just don't have to do anything with it. Not that I usually spend a whole lot of time. Anyway, because it's usually in a bun or a ponytail. So, glad to see you guys back. I'm just writing down names right now until we get started. Hi, Karen. So yeah, I was actually on Instagram, and it said Pepford is starting a live video. So I jumped on, and it was good to see Devin again. I was just down at Pepford on Monday, and Devin, one of the owners, has moved to Manhattan, New York, and so I don't see him as often as I see the others. So it was nice to see Devin, and it looked like a really good Instagram or a really good podcast. So hopefully I can finish it later and you guys can check it out as well. I'm sure she had a lot of really great grooming tips, which is something that I try and do with every puppy client and in every puppy class. One thing that I do is I do this thing called Meet the Uniform. So one week I'll have a groomer come, and then I'll have like a police officer come in uniform. I try to have a veterinarian come, just so dogs can get socialized and, meet different uniforms. And then when I have the groomer, she'll go around and do like a little mini mani-pedi, and just like handle the dogs and touch them and get them used to being groomed and handled. So anyway, I'm sure she had some great tips for everybody. I'm very lucky in that all my dogs are short hair. I can basically wash them in the tub or the swimming pool, and that's how I bathe them. But in the past, I have had the dogs with the undercoat, like I've had German Shepherds, I've had a Samoyed, and they had to get groomed just because of that undercoat. And man, I'll tell you, that is a lot of work. My Samoyed was a lot of work just in the grooming and brushing. It was crazy. So anyway, okay, just want to make sure that I have everybody so far. Well, hello, Nicole. I'll write everybody down now, and then hopefully you'll have questions, and we can get going with the questions. So Monday I was down at Pepford where we are refilming some of the courses. So even my own classes are always a work in progress. So I always, like with all of the continuing ed and all the stuff that I learn, I'm always changing my own classes, and especially my reactive dog class is always a work in progress. So the more I learn, or the more I see some clients struggle with certain things like leash manners, or just being able to, you know, walk a dog with leash. So I should say leash skills. I have recently like added in an extra week of just leash skills just to help people that way. So I like that Comfort is also, we are redoing some of the videos just, as we get new information, and they have a professional videographer now. And so just to make it better quality and things for you guys, we're going to be redoing some of them. So that's been a lot of fun. Definitely easier the second time around because I already have like the outlines and everything, so it's a little bit smoother. Although Monday we were doing the leash walking course and I was using Jade and it was raining, and so we were lucky enough to get a spot where we could go outside and demonstrate some of the leash techniques while it was dry for like 5 minutes. The bad thing is that since it's been like a year since I've done that course, my own dog has gotten better at not pulling. So now that I like wanted her to pull, she wouldn't pull. She's like, but mom, I'm not supposed to do that. Like we've been working on this and we have. So it was interesting. Luckily, we had a few tricks to like get her to pull enough to be able to demo some things for you. So hopefully it I don't know when it'll be out. There's like no hurry, but you can kind of look forward to that, some new videos. Okay, we have a couple of questions. And Stephanie, if you can tell me where you're from, I can enter you in the drawing. When you come on every week, I start to memorize where everybody's from. Hi, Marion. Like Marion, Phoenix. I always want to write down that she's from Phoenix, but actually she's from Utah. So, yeah, Stephanie, if you, and Daniel as well. Montreal. Okay. And Daniel, I will answer your question as well. And if you want to let me know where you're from, then I can enter you in the drawing. Okay. So, backing up, Stephanie's asking, my dog barks excessively on leash only and wants to play and meet every dog. Any suggestions? He socializes for around 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. He's 11 months old. Yeah, so what I usually do for things like that is impulse control. So, if your dog is barking and wanting to greet another dog, I will actually turn and go the other way or ask the dog for a sit and a wait and a quiet. And only when they're calm do they get to greet another dog. So if they're barking, this is typical for, an adolescent, like your dog's basically a teenager adolescent. So, wanting to pull and bark and be like, oh my gosh, there's a playmate. I want to play. I want to see him. It can be hard. So I will teach, so we'll turn and walk the other way. I'll ask the dog to sit and then wait. And then when the dog is waiting and quiet, then I'll say, okay, now you can go say hi. So it's all about impulse control. I use wait instead of stay because for this instance, because wait is like wait and then you get to go do it. Whereas stay is going to be a longer, like you're going to do a downstay while we eat dinner, or you're going to do a downstay, while I talk to this person. So it's kind of longer, and the dog should stay there until you release them. So, yeah, if the dog is barking, then that dog is over threshold, not in a bad way, but just in a like, oh, I want to play, I want to greet that dog. But still over threshold. So I would say, oh, let's go, and go the other way. Back them up to a point where your dog's not barking, and then ask for a sit and a wait. And then you can even say, okay, now as long as you're calm, we'll move a little bit closer. And then you can move a little bit closer. And then as long as your dog is calm, you can keep moving closer and then say, okay, so go say hi. So the dog will learn that if they show that impulse control and if they wait, then they do get to greet the dog and play. So it's more of a, he's well socialized and everything like that. It's more just an over arousal and excitement type thing, which is common for dogs this age. So just teaching that, wait. And if you wanted to use stay, it wouldn't be wrong. Like you could even do a sit and stay while the other dog walks up to them, and then you can say, okay, now go say hi. Things like that. So just teaching the dog the proper way to say hi. Another thing you can do is if your dog is pulling and barking, I would stop. Like just stop walking and wait for your dog to either, well, I would do both. Give you a loose leash and be calm. So don't bark and turn around and focus on me. And when the dog turns around to focus on you, that's going to create a loose leash. And then when you get close enough, then you can release the dog to go say hi. So I know that Pupford has 21 impulse control games, which would probably be perfect for this situation. I actually bought those when they first came out, and full disclosure, I haven't gotten through them yet just because of time, but it's something that I fully intend to do because I deal with dogs that have impulse issues all the time. So I thought, oh, this will be good. I can learn some different impulse control games and different ways of doing things. So I always love to learn from other trainers and expand on what I know. So you might check out the 21 impulse control games because that's all it is just a matter of impulse control. And I wouldn't even consider that the dog is being reactive because your dog is reacting to another dog, but not in a negative, not in like a fearful way or an aggressive way. It sounds like your dog's just a puppy or an adolescent that is just like a typical teenager. They want what they want right now. And so sometimes we have to tell them, oh, you got to wait a little bit and then you can have it. So hope that answered your question. Okay, so Daniel's in Arizona. Oh, I bet it's hot in Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 2 years, and I used to have a license plate frame that says "I'm not afraid of hell. I live in Arizona," and I'm not kidding. It was too hot. I don't handle heat well, and even in Utah where I'm at, it's been really really hot lately, and I am thinking about moving to Alaska or Montana or somewhere where it's colder. Because even here it's been hot. I can't even imagine what Arizona's like. So I was there, like I said, 2 years, and I went a whole summer without air conditioning because my air conditioning went out. I was a poor college student, and I couldn't afford to fix it. So I went a whole summer with no AC. And then I got a new car in like September, October. So it was brutal. Okay, so Daniel is asking if you can use shea butter or coconut oil on the dry paws of my dog. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't see why that would be bad. I have also used, oh shoot, I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it. They do make some stuff for the dog's paws. And I'm drawing a blank. There's two different things. One of them you can usually get at a vet clinic because I've seen it sold there, and I cannot remember the name of it. The other one is something more. I see it a lot where I live because I live in a rural area, but they use it to put on like cows' udders, things like that for really dry, cracked skin. But I think it's bag balm. I think it's called bag balm. I think you could put that on your dog's paws as well, but I don't see why shea butter or coconut oil would hurt your dog's paws. Just to be safe, you might want to ask a vet or a groomer just to be sure. But I would think that it would be fine. Both of those are pretty natural products. Trying to think of what the other product is called. They use it with sled dogs, so that are on their feet like all the time. But I cannot remember what it's called. If anybody knows, put it in the chat. You probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah, Karen, bag balm. Mushers. Veronica, thank you. That's what it is, mushers. That would work as well. Isn't it called? Yeah, Musher Secret. Perfect. Thanks, Nicole. So I'm going to write a few, yeah, green square tin. That's exactly right, bag balm. We have a lot of that here because I live in horse and cow country. But the Musher Secret is the one that I've seen sold at vet clinics. But you could use either one of those as well, and those would work. Okay, so going back. Okay, so Stephanie's saying I always walk in the other direction and never allowed to greet when barking still doesn't work. Okay, so you're doing the right thing. Like walk away and sit until he calms down. And if you can get somebody to help you that has a dog, so that you don't have to work, try to train with people just randomly walking around that you can't control their distance or what they do. So turn and go the other way, and then sit, and then when your dog is calm, the other thing, you could do the engage disengage game, which is something that we do with reactive dogs, and it would work even if the dog is not like reactive in a bad way, but just I want to meet you, I want to play. So what you would do is when your dog is barking, then you just say, let's go, and you go the other way. And you start at a distance, whatever distance that it takes for your dog to just notice the other dog and not bark. So it might be 10 feet. For some dogs, it's like 100 feet or 100 yards. But when your dog can just look at the other dog, I use a clicker for this because the sound of the click can teach the dog to disengage and look at you. Especially if you've used the clicker before, then they know that the clicker means treat. So basically, your dog looks, you click and treat for looking and not reacting. And you stay at a specific distance. So let's just say 10 feet. So you're going to stay 10 feet. And I would do it like 4 to 5 times. So it's like, look at the dog, click, treat. Look at the dog, click, treat. After like 5 times, and then say, okay, do you want to go one step closer? And just take one step. Now, in my classes, I invariably always have somebody that when I say take one step closer, they'll go 1, 2, 3. And there's a lot of distance that can be covered in 3 steps. So you literally only want to go 1 step. And if your dog doesn't go with you, then that means they might be a little fearful or not. They don't want to go forward. So then you go back to where they are. If your dog goes forward with you, then you can go 1 foot and then practice at 9 feet. If you start to go forward and your dog like pulls ahead and wants to start reacting again or pulling towards the other dog, then I would say, oh, we're going to go this way, and then back up a little bit. But as long as your dog is calm, and what you're doing is you're pairing the other dog with treats, but you're also teaching your dog to just look and notice the other dog without reacting, gets rewarded for that, and then as long as he's calm, then he gets to move 1 step closer, 1 step closer, 1 step closer. And we do that in my reactive dog class all the time, and we go 1 step until the dog can usually come up and greet one of my dogs calmly. And these are usually dogs that are like fear reactive, and so they've usually attacked other dogs. So I make sure that they're calm before I let them meet my dog. And Stephanie, if you want the handout for that, if you email me, I'm going to put my email in the chat. It's Tracy with an I at pupford.com. So if you want to email me for the handout, just say, send me the engage, disengage. I can totally send that to you. And then it has pictures. It's really easy to understand. But you're on the right track by moving away and then sitting and waiting till he's calm. And then I would take it one step further, and when he can just look at the dog and not bark, reward for that. And the reason that I do the clicker is because when the dog hears the clicker, they disengage. So they look away from the dog like, oh, I heard the clicker, where's my treat? And then pretty soon the dog will do that on his own. It's like, oh, there's a dog, I'm going to disengage. Okay, there's a dog, where's my treat? And so I click and treat for that too. So when the dog looks at a dog and then disengages on his own and looks at me, I reward for that. Okay. And then when you said it's only when I turn far away in another direction, is that when he barks? So he only barks when you're far away? And then is he calmer when you get closer? That's what I would want to know, because I may do things a little bit differently if he's far away. You know, and not being able to see his body language, it almost, like, it could be a fear thing as well, because a lot of dogs, in fact, I worked with a dog today that goes to doggy daycare and is great off leash and great with other dogs. Well, I mean, he's kind of a bully, but he's still pretty good with other dogs. But he goes to daycare. However, when he's on his own property or when he's on a leash, what happens is if a dog feels threatened or sees another dog and they can't, you know, if they feel threatened, their parasympathetic nervous system kicks in to where they're going to either fight, flight, or freeze. And when we have a dog on a leash, we take away their flight option. So that leaves, I'm either going to freeze or I'm going to react. And sometimes dogs will bark and react to make the other dog go away. And so that's why we want to teach them just to look at the dog and start at a safe distance. Another thing that you could do, Stephanie, is teach a flight cue. And the flight cue is kind of like, I use the word retreat. And so I'll toss treats like behind the dog. And in fact, I start with my water bottle. So I'll start with a water bottle. And I'll have the dog come up and sniff the water bottle. So we're going to pretend like this pen is the dog. And so as soon as they sniff, I'll say retreat. And I throw treats from my hand behind the dog to get the dog to turn around and go the other way. And so then it's a fun game of like, retreat, we're going to go this way. Oh, good boy, good boy, good boy. And I use really high value treats that the dog never gets any other time. So that would be like boiled chicken, or I use the salmon or the puppered salmon a lot. I use gizzards. I'll just buy it from the store, cut it up, freeze it. So teaching a flight cue so your dog learns that instead of barking, I can retreat. And then I have this Thanksgiving, so it has to be like, it's like Thanksgiving or Christmas. So it's like the only time your dog gets this super yummy high value treat is when your dog hears the flight cue. So you could do that too. And if you want to email me for that, I can send you that as well. The handout's called Walk Away. So you're basically teaching the dog, instead of reacting, we're going to turn and walk the other way and have the best party and treats. And then we can slowly get closer if we want. Okay, let's see. Okay, Veronica. And Veronica, I know you've been on here before, but it's been a little while. Will you remind me where you're from? just so I can write it down and enter you in the drawing. So Milo, my golden doodle, 9 months now, has started to mark territory when on walks, and I was told today at dog camp that he is starting to show dominant behavior towards male older dogs. So I just saw your other question, and yes, I would get him neutered now. I know that veterinarians like to wait as long as possible. Like they want to wait till the growth plates close. There are benefits to waiting. However, what I usually say is go on your vet's advice until you start seeing behavior issues. So now that you are seeing behavior issues with other dogs, I think now is the time to get him neutered. And you can tell your vet, like they told me at doggy daycare that he is starting to show aggression to other dogs. So can we get him neutered now? And especially if he's doing it to the other dogs. And let me just talk briefly about dominance, because I know it's kind of a word that gets misused a lot. And so, thanks to some television personalities and YouTube, there's a lot of trainers out there that use the word wrong. So dominance is very fluid. And it depends on the circumstance. So I'm going to give you an example. The best way to explain it is I'm going to use my dogs as an example. So I have 4 pit bulls right now, and Jade is the second youngest. So I have 2 older than her. However, because of her background, she likes to guard food. And if somebody even gets close to where the food is kept, she'll like snap at them. So when I first got her, she would snarf down her food, and then she would go over to Daphne's bowl and eat Daphne's food. And Daphne would totally back away. And so in that circumstance, in that instance, Jade was dominant. Even though Jade's younger, Jade was dominant because Daphne deferred to her and is like, well, okay, I guess I don't want my food. You can have it. So the next week, Jade went and tried to eat Maddie's food. And Maddie kind of told her off. I mean, there was a little bit of a squabble, just like, get away from my food. It wasn't like an all-out fight, but it was, Maddie told her off. And Jade backed away. And so in that instance, Maddie was dominant. And Jade has actually never tried to eat Maddie's food again. She just knows, like, okay, I can get away with it with Daph, but I can't get away with it with Maddie. So when it comes to food, that's how she is. Now, if they have like toys or other things, like she doesn't really care about those. So it depends on the resource. So, let's say that she has a ball in her mouth and another dog comes up and takes the ball from her, then she doesn't care. She'll be like, yeah, whatever, you can have it. In that instance, the other dog is dominant and Jade isn't. Jade doesn't care enough about the ball, and so she's like, okay, have it. I don't care. When it comes to like sleeping on the bed or getting on the couch, sometimes if she's comfortable and a dog kind of gets too close, or if she's like resource guarding me, she might growl. And then if the other dog backs away, then in that case, she's dominant. However, I don't allow that. So if she growls at another dog that's just trying to get on the couch, because all my dogs are allowed on the couch, then I say, oh, Jade, I'm so sorry. You just lost your couch privilege. And then I make her get off. And then after the other dogs get on and are comfortable, then I let her back on. So that she doesn't get to control the couch, I do. So does that make sense? So it's very situational. and it depends on the resource. So today I had to work with a dog that actually goes on this group off leash hike thing, and he's kind of starting to bully some other dogs. And there was a tennis ball out, with all the herding breeds wanted the tennis ball, and one dog would have it, and if another dog would come close, he would kind of like give a side eye and kind of a lip curl, snarl, and then if the other dog backed away, in that instance, the dog that had the ball was dominant. And the other dog, even though was much bigger and probably could have kicked the little dog's butt, is like, oh, okay, I can take a hint, I'll back off. So in that instance, that dog was dominant. So so when the people at dog camp say that he's starting to show dominant behavior, yes, it could be dominant if it has to do with like food or bed. So dogs can show dominance around resources. So like food, or they can actually resource guard different objects. So sleeping places, food, toys, bones, things like that. If your golden doodle is doing things like just body slamming or pinning, that's not necessarily dominance. That's more bullying behavior. And especially at 9 months, now your dog is reaching that teenage adolescent stage, and that's when dogs kind of start to push the limits and see what they can get away with. And so what it is it's not really so much a dominance thing, but it's Milo trying to figure out where he is on the social hierarchy. So yeah, he might be trying to challenge older dogs to move himself up on the hierarchy, which is totally different than alpha or dominant. So those are not the right terms, but social hierarchy, and that's pretty normal for a 9-month-old unneutered male. So at this point, yes, I would definitely get him neutered, because that behavior is just going to get worse. I had a client who was trying to wait as long as she could to neuter her dog. And we were going on, we were doing a hike and train where I would take the dog out. And I started to notice that he was lunging and barking at other dogs on hikes. Off leash, he was great. But on leash, he was starting to, kind of be a bully. And so I said, oh, I think it's time to get Max neutered. And so they did. So they ended up doing it at like 15 months. And now he was actually on the hike today that I went on. Beautiful. He has a good recall. He has really good social skills, really good dog manners. So in that case, they were able to wait. But where Milo's already starting to show that behavior, I would definitely think about getting him neutered for sure. Oh, that's right, Veronica, you live in Montana. That's where I want to move, Montana or Alaska, because it's too hot here. And there's a lot of people moving in where I live, so I'm ready to find another small town. Okay, I'm going to turn the fan on really quick because it's hot in here. I'll be right back. I guess I need to do. This is like the hottest summer I remember in a really long time. So I have fans going all the time. Okay, Julie, I feel like I'm a bad dog owner. You're not. Things happen. We could call me a bad dog owner. Before I finish your question, I'll tell you what happened to me on Sunday. Jade is a service dog at training for my migraines. Hopefully she'll be able to detect migraines. And so I take her to church with me, and she's in a vest that says service dog in training. And she's absolutely the most chill dog. She can lay for a solid hour and not move. So then we come home, I was reading on the couch, and the next thing I know, there's a knock at the door. And not a lot of people come to my house because I'm kind of introverted, and I have 4 pit bulls. And so people don't like to come to my house. So if I'm not expecting somebody, it's like, who's that? I mean, nobody ever comes to my house. So I answer the door, and there's a guy that I think they're new. I recognize them from church, but I don't know who they are. And they're like, I think we have your dog. And sure enough, they recognized her from church, and I had her address on the tag. She had jumped the fence while I was right inside reading, and she'd gone to the neighbors and rolled in sheep and goat poop. And it's really hard to get out. I mean, she had two baths, and you could still smell the sheep poop on her. It's like this oily that it just gets in the hair. But anyway, so you're not a bad dog owner. Somebody could call me a bad dog owner because it's like, well, how come she lets her service dog escape? Well, she jumps the fence. So I do have to watch her constantly. So like right now while I'm doing this, she is locked inside while the other dogs get to be outside, but she has to be in here with me because I can't supervise her. So, okay, so Ellie found another way to escape. She chased a cat out of the woods. It lived behind a condo complex, so she was barking at one of the people that live there. Okay, so I'm seeing two different things happening. Ellie escaped and chased a cat, which is kind of normal for a lot of dogs, like especially if a cat runs. If a dog has prey drive, they will want to chase it. And then, you know, if Ellie was barking at one of the people that live there, it kind of depends on. So it could be like, what did the person look like? Was it a tall guy with a baseball hat, or was it a guy with a beard, or was it, you know, somebody? Was the person dressed in a way that maybe Ellie is like, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that before? So it could be that she was barking out of fear, or just like lack of socialization, like, oh my gosh, there's a person I've never seen before. So it kind of depends on the circumstance. She also could have been chasing the cat to play. I mean, my dogs are terrified of my old cat, but if they're outside and another cat runs, they will chase it. However, if they actually caught up to the cat, they wouldn't do anything. They'd just be like, oh, okay, well, now I caught you. What am I supposed to do? Like, they wouldn't hurt it, but they just like the chase. And then once the chase is over, they don't care. I don't know with Ellie what Ellie would do if she caught a cat, but it could just be like, oh, something's running, I'm going to chase it. And so, I mean, yeah, and the other person that lives there, like, were they yelling at her? Were they doing something to provoke her barking? I would just kind of what I did, I chalked it up to, okay, Jade, I cannot trust you outside in the yard by yourself. So now you can be out there when I'm out there and can supervise, or I'm going to have to get a taller fence, or just, you know, keep you in where you can't get out. So now that you know she can chase cats and that she might bark at people, you could actually walk her around the condo complex and have her start to notice other people and pair that with treats. So it's like, oh, there's a stranger, treat. So kind of like to look at that game. There's a stranger, treat. If there's people that say, oh, what a cute dog, just say, oh, would you mind tossing Ellie a few treats so that Ellie can learn that strangers are great and I get treats from them, and then she's less likely to bark at them. So, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. Whenever we're trying to fix behavior, though, we always want to look at the underlying cause. So, like, did Ellie escape because she saw a cat and is like, oh my gosh, I've got to chase that cat? So she found a way out. And then why was she barking at the people? Was it because they looked different? Was it because they were wearing something she hadn't seen before and she just needs to be socialized? Were they yelling at her? So we kind of want to look at that first. And then I would continue to work on a really good leave it and a really good recall. You could also do the flight cue that I was talking about earlier with Stephanie. So the like, Ellie, retreat. And that means to her, I turn 180 degrees and have the best party and treats ever. So that's where I use a treat that my dogs don't ever get any other time except when they hear the flight cue. And that's when I use the gizzard because and at first when I'm teaching a flight cue, I do use it a lot to reinforce it so they know um, that when they hear the word, they get the super yummy stuff. Um, so it has to be like, you know, it's like, oh, Thanksgiving, that's the only time I get turkey. Or for a kid, it's like, oh, it's Christmas and Santa Claus comes and I get presents. So it has to be that high value. So for Ellie, instead of chasing the cat and wanting to bark at the neighbor, if you say, Ellie, retreat, or some of my clients have used like party time, then she will learn to turn the other way and be like, oh, sorry, cat, I really want to chase you, but hey, we're having Christmas at my house and that's more fun. So I'm going to go have Christmas. And that's when she gets the chicken hearts or the gizzards or the salmon treats or something really, really good. And it's got to be super high value, like, oh, good job, Ellie, let's go, what a good girl. So that's why one of my clients came up with party time to kind of remind herself that it's got to be best party ever. So I would start working on a flight cue and then maybe socialize her a little more like around the condo complex so that she doesn't bark at people as much. Another thing that could cause her to bark would be like a barrier. My dogs know my neighbors. We go over there a lot, and I take them over there. They can come in my yard anytime, and my dogs are fine. But if the husband is mowing the lawn and there's a barrier between them, my dogs will go crazy and bark at him. And it's because he's on the riding lawnmower, and there's a barrier, and they like to bark at the lawnmower anyway. But if I open the gate and take away the barrier, then they're fine. They're like, oh, no big deal. Darcy's mowing the lawn, and it's not a thing. But when there's that barrier there and they can't get to them, then a lot of times the barrier will kind of cause a dog to react. So kind of keep that in mind too. Um, okay, so Veronica, yes. So if you're at a dog park, the behavior will depend on what he is interested in. So let's say that your dog is super obsessed about tennis balls, and if another and in dog parks, at least I see a lot of people with the chuckets and they'll chuck a ball for their dog, but other dogs will run too because if your dog loves the ball, who's not going to chase a ball? So, and your dog doesn't know that tennis ball belongs to the other dog. All your dog sees is that there's a ball being thrown, so he'll run to it. Um, if the other dog gets it first, then your dog might growl at the other dog. And if the other dog says, "Oh no, you don't. This is my ball," um, and he might growl back, and you may actually have a dog fight over a ball, or there might be like it might not be a full out dog fight, but it might be some snarling back and forth over the ball. And if the other dog like growls and your dog is like, oh, okay, my bad, then in that case, that dog is dominant. But if your dog runs up and growls and the other dog is like, oh, okay, it's fine, you can have the ball, I don't care, then yes, in that situation, your dog was dominant. So it is very fluid and depends on the circumstance. Um, so that's one reason that I don't go to dog parks because um, you never know what another dog's going to do, and people will take things like balls and toys, and then there's always the chance that dogs are going to fight over those resources. Um, So like on the group hike today, I did not take any treats, and I usually always have treats, but I knew that we were going to have like 15 off leash dogs. But there are tennis balls that other dogs have left. So sometimes there are resources. Some dogs will just grab a stick and they want to play with the stick, and then another dog will decide, oh, I want that stick. So yeah, it depends on the resource. Um, okay, so oh, did Maddie actually get up? My dog Maddie, which I think a lot of you have seen, she's 11. She's having a really hard time standing up on her own. She's got back problems, hip problems, and she's 11. And so I've had to help her. I have to help her up now to get her outside to potty. But I hear her drinking, which means she finally got herself up. So that's a good thing. Um, okay, Julie, I have no idea what the person looks like. All I know is the lady was yelling at her and me. So if the lady was yelling at Ellie, that could cause her to bark, because she was like challenging her. And if the lady was yelling you, Ellie could actually be protecting you and is reacting to the lady yelling. So if the lady would have been calm, like, oh, hey, your dog was chasing the cat, you might want to do something about that, there's a good chance that Ellie would not have reacted. But since the lady was yelling at her and yelling at you, that could have caused Ellie to react. Um, so yeah. Um, so yeah, she yelled to keep my dog in my yard. She's going to attack one of her animals, and I don't know what I don't know enough about Ellie to know if she would have attacked the cat or the dog. Like I said, some dogs just like to chase, and as soon as they chase, like Jade's one of those. Jade loves to chase dogs that run. She loves to chase balls, but once it stops, then she's done, and she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go off and do my own thing then." So once it stops running or the ball stops, then she's done. So with Elliot, it depends on her prey drive as to whether she's actually going to attack another animal or not. But again, I would do the same thing. First rule is always management. So manage your environment so that she can't get out. Now that you know that she's going to do this, you could always tether her on a long line to you so that she's attached to you and she can't. Even if she found a way to escape, she's not going to get very far because she's attached to you with a long line. And then I would start working on a really good leave it, come, and or flight cue, to get her to come, to turn around and come back to you. That's what I would do. Stephanie, what's the height suggestion for a 35-pound doodle to not jump over a balcony from the fourth floor? Um, so my 35-pound, I have two pit mixes, and they are around 35 to 40 pounds, and they can jump my 5-foot fence, which had I known, I would have gotten a 6-foot fence. So I would go at least 6 feet. My actual dog run, I believe, is 8 feet. So I would go at least 6 feet for sure. You can also, instead of the guardrail, you can get what's called a coyote roller, and you can make your own. It might not be as pretty as when you buy. I don't even know if they actually sell them, but it's like you can get a rope, and it's basically PVC pipe or something that just you thread the rope through, and so if the dog jumps, it just rolls, and so the dog can't get a grip, and so it's so coyotes can't like jump into your yard. In fact, Stephanie, you just gave me a great idea. I might have to do that to my backyard because I really don't want to spend the money to increase the fence size. And since I know she jumps, I could just put coyote rollers on that one side of the fence that she can jump. And that way she can't get traction because if she goes to jump on it, so if this is the roller, it just, there's a rope going through here. And so if she grabs, it's just going to roll and she's not going to be able to get over. So with your balcony, you could actually do coyote rollers, but you want to make sure that your balcony is still high enough to where she can't jump and get most of her body over the balcony because then she could just roll off. So make sure your balcony is high enough and then put the rollers on. And I think if you went to YouTube and just typed in coyote rollers, in fact, there's stuff there because I've looked at it. It will actually show you how to make it. So you can use cable, rope, and then you want it high enough to where the dog just jumps and gets the paws on the roller and then it rolls back so that they can't get most of their body. Does that make sense? Yeah, I wouldn't spend 10,000 on a guardrail, but yeah, I would definitely do, if you can, I would do something 6 feet, or do the rollers so that they can't jump. Oh, well, Julie, that's good. She does come when she's called. She did come when we heard her barking. So that's actually great. So don't feel like you're a bad owner. Feel like you're a good owner because so she did what dogs do, which is chase. I guarantee if I opened my door and my dog saw rabbits, they would chase. Um, and the fact that when she was barking, you called her and she came back to you, I think that's awesome. And yeah, there's always room for improvement. Like you can always improve behavior. You can always make it better. You can always make it faster. But the fact that she came when you called her, I think is awesome. And it's just too bad that a lady yelled at you and probably doesn't know your dog. Or I mean, I get that a lot because I have pit bulls, but everybody thinks that my dogs are going to kill their children. And in reality, my dogs are terrified of my 19-year-old insulin dependent cat. So they back down pretty easily. But yeah, I would just I would take it as like use it as a learning experience. So now that you know another way that Ellie's escaped, fix that. Either tether or crate if you can't supervise, and then maybe work on a flight cue, which is going to be stronger than a come. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, we're having Christmas at my house, and I'm going to get chicken gizzards that I never get. And so you can use that. Hello, Cindy. Glad you could join us. Just going to write your name down. Joey and Pepper are learning a bit more to play, and Joey is sometimes learning his boundaries and backing off. That's awesome. And it's a learning process. So that's, the fact that Joey is learning is great. And I think Joey will just keep learning, which is totally awesome. That's what we kind of did today in our group hike. Again, this dog goes to daycare and is really good off leash. But when they do the pack walks, like the dogs are so overstimulated and so excited, and he's a herding breed. So he naturally will go around and try to herd all the dogs into one group. And sometimes he'll like pin one down. And so we're having to teach him something different. Like, okay, that's not appropriate. So what we did is we actually gave him a job. We put a pack on him with some water bottles so that he has a job. Or you can do something like, I told the hiker, teach him to carry a ball in his mouth, because if he has a ball in his mouth, then he can't go around and like nip at other dogs. But yes, it's always a learning process. So the fact that Joey is oh, excuse me, is learning boundaries. I think that's awesome. That's amazing. Good job. And Julie, I think you're right. I think she just likes to chase. So, um, anime lover, what's the best way to train a dog? Um, that's a long answer, so I'm just going to say um, consistency. Make sure you use science-based training methods, so no aversives. So no things like shaker cans, squirt bottles, shock collars, prong collars, anything that causes pain, intimidation, or fear, you do not want to use. So you always want to use positive reinforcers like treats, praise. You want to use things that are going to increase the bond you have with your dog instead of, um, causing your dog to be fearful. So I was actually watching a video of a relatively new trainer that's in my area, and he uses shock collars for everything, even with puppies, which drives me crazy that he put a shock collar on a puppy. And so he's got all these videos like, oh, look how good this dog's doing, and look how good this dog's walking on leash. But he's got a shock collar on him, and he's also using a prong collar, and he's doing some harsh corrections. And every time he does that, the dog cowers. And so the dog is walking by the trainer's side, but the dog's also scared to death of getting a correction and isn't enjoying the walk. You can tell the dog is afraid because of the body language. And so the trainer's using intimidation and pain to train, and that's not a good way to train dogs. So I would say science-based training, positive reinforcement is always the best way. Anything that's going to increase the bond that you have with your dog, rather than using fear, intimidation, or pain. So thanks for asking that question. That's actually a really good question, because you go on YouTube, you can find just about anything, and some videos just make me cringe because I can see a dog cowering or being afraid or intimidated, and the trainer thinks, oh, this dog is so well trained, but in reality, that dog is shutting down. Like, that dog is terrified and is listening, but it's because they're afraid of getting a reprimand or punishment. Oh, let's see. Let me go back. Is there? Just not sure. Oh, yeah, that the condo will allow this coyote look. Um, there's different things you can use. So if you look it up on YouTube and just type in coyote rollers, at the rescue we use these, and at one time we used PVC pipe, and it did look tacky. It was white and it looked tacky. Then we had somebody that was a professional like contractor, and he used steel, and it was very well done, and it looked nice, and it did not look tacky. In fact, you couldn't even really tell what it was. We had a dog that could jump out of any kennel, could jump 10 feet. And so we did the roller on top, but you really couldn't tell what it was unless you looked. So if you do it right, you can make it look nice and not tacky. So I would just look at different ways to do it that's going to accomplish the same thing without making it look bad. Okay. Oh, Karen, I used the party time today for the first time. When my puppy ran out the door and was heading down the road, worked like a charm. Yay! I'm so happy to hear that. Luckily, I always have salmon treats on me. I actually do too. Well, I don't like right this second because they're in my car. But during the day when I'm training, or specifically when I'm working with my own dogs, I always have treats on me. But I am so happy that worked. Isn't it amazing? when you practice it and then you actually need it and it works. And I like that you use party time because that just kind of um, is a good reminder to you and the dog, like this is a party, like you're not in trouble, we're going to have a party. So that's awesome, good job. um, and the more you do it and like positively like reinforce that, your dog's just going to keep doing it. So that's great, I'm so happy, that just made my day. um, yeah, so Julie, I'm assuming that, yeah, you're talking about the coyote rollers. um, they do want everything to match, but I think there's got to be some kind, and it would depend on what your balcony looks like. But I know that the ones that we had the second time, the ones that were done professional, blended right in with the kennel, and you couldn't even tell what it was, and it did look very professional. Um, so yeah, I would just see what your HOA or the condo people say. Um, I mean, honestly, it's going to look better than putting an extension up of the balcony. So even if you got some fencing and extended it up from the balcony, that's going to look more tacky, in my opinion, than putting one little line of metal roller. But that's just my opinion. Um, okay. Do we have? I'm going to go back really quick and see if we have any more questions. Emily, no questions tonight about Raven or your, remind me your new dog's name. I just forgot. Your foster that's a foster fail. Oh, and how's that going with your brother? I know there was an issue with your new dog barking at your brother. Have you been able to work through that? Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. And um, and again, if there's um, any of the handouts that you want, feel free to email me. Sometimes it takes me a couple days to get everything back, but I'm happy to send you any handouts that you want. Veronica, what part of Montana do you live in? I was actually, while I'm going through questions, I was thinking about moving to Idaho because there's still some property that you can get not too expensive that's a little off the grid, which is kind of where I like to live. But my mom, I don't think I could talk my mom into going as like remote as I want to go. And I don't like heat. And but Idaho has decent weather. They don't get really bad winters, although I don't mind winter. But somebody suggested we should go to Montana because you love the mountains and heat. But how hot does it get in the summer? And can you still buy property there for, like, right now where I live? Property and houses are insane as far as cost, and people just can't afford to live here anymore. So luckily, I bought here 30 years ago when I did, or I would never be able to afford to live here. Okay. Oh, Bozeman. Awesome. Yeah, I figured. And honestly, I'd rather live in a small town anyway. I've actually been to Bozeman once. I went with a neighbor to Kalispell to buy some llamas, and then when we came back, we briefly stopped in Bozeman. But I love Montana. I think it's beautiful. Do you watch the show Yellowstone? It's a series with Kevin Costner. They were filming it, some of it in Montana and some of it in Utah, and now they've pulled up stakes in Utah, and now they're solely filming it in Montana, which is a bummer because I was hoping to meet like at least some of the cast members. Anyway, if you haven't watched it, you should. I think we're on season 4 now, but it's actually a really good series, and it's beautiful country. So, and you've hit 100, but mostly high 80s, low 90s. That's about what it is where I live too. Is sometimes where I live, it's usually 10 degrees cooler than it is in the city. So like down in Salt Lake City, if it's 100 degrees, it'll be 90 where I live. But for me, 90 is still really, really hot. So Jade and I have been doing a lot of going to the lake and playing in the water to get cool, and then going up into the mountains to hike, just to get out of the heat. So yeah, you do what you have to do. Yeah, so I don't know what part of Montana they're filming it in now, but I know they moved like totally to Montana. So hi Travis. Yeah, it does cool down at night here too. So at night, I usually sleep with all the windows open and 2 fans on me. And about the middle of the night, I actually have to put 1 blanket on. But that's about as cool as it gets. Oh, Nicole, that's way too hot. 100. That's what it felt like when I lived in Arizona. Like sometimes 108. It was crazy. It's funny because where I live, a lot of the older people, we call them snowbirds. So they live here in the summer, and then during the winter they move down south because it's warmer. But sometimes they'll go down to check on their places and then in the summer down where they have their second house, it's over 100, and it's like you can't even stand to be outside. So yeah, I don't know how, but some people love the heat. So Travis, Mickey's 3rd birthday is today. That's awesome. Now, is this an actual birthday or is this an adopt a birthday? Because like with my dogs being rescues, I don't know when their actual birthday is, so their birthday is basically the day that I adopted them. But either way, congratulations and happy birthday to Mickey. Travis, remind me where you live. When you said it's kind of smoky, is that because you're having fires? Well, we do have a couple of wildfires around here too, which makes the air smoky. Oh, it's her real birthday. Awesome. That's cool. So happy birthday to Mickey. So here's some things that I do. It's really hot here too, and like today when I went on the pack walk, it was really hot. And when I try to take my dogs for a walk, it's really hot. So a lot of times I'm lucky that I live right at the base of the mountains, and so I can go up into the mountains where it's cooler and there's streams and um, things like that where they can play and get cool. So a lot of times I'll try and do a hike instead of a walk. But if you don't have that option, another thing you can do is they make, I've taken like a bandana before and wrapped it around my dog, like a bandana, a wet bandana, um, and done some of that. Or I'll play fetch with my dogs in the yard, but I have a pool that the dogs can jump in and swim. So, or well, it's not big enough to swim, but they can jump in and cool off. Another thing that I've been doing, especially with Jade, I can't do this with Maddie because she's too old, but I take Maddie to the lake and we play fetch. So she runs out in the water, gets the tennis ball, brings it back. And we do that over and over. So she's getting a lot of exercise while being able to stay cool. And if I get too hot, I just jump in the water with her. So yeah, sometimes you have to kind of improvise in the summer if it's really hot because the pavement can get too hot, the asphalt can get too hot, and if you're walking and you're hot, then your dog's going to be even hotter. And it's just not fun. And I love what Travis was doing because instead of worrying about physical exercise, he is doing enrichment, which is so cool. Because when it's really hot, I will tend to do more enrichment than physical exercise. Because dogs need it just as much. It can tire them out. And so things like scent training, tricks, and yes, training new tricks is part of enrichment because you're doing shaping. So any kind of shaping, and usually with tricks, you have to shape it, meaning you break it down into little pieces. So like if I was going to shape a rollover, first I would do it down and then I would lower the nose back to the hip and click and treat and do that several times. And then once the dog is going back to the hip, then I would go a little further till they roll. So yeah, shaping is a form of enrichment because the dog has to think as like, okay, well, what does my owner want now? And they kind of have to do different things. And then when they hear that marker and the treat, they know, oh, okay, that's what we want. So yes, doing tricks is a great part of enrichment. Scent work is also really good. Anytime a dog uses their nose, it engages the brain and it tires the dog out. So doing scent work, a lot of times I'll just take a handful of treats and throw them in the grass and say, go hunt. You can also get a pool with water and, put different toys and stuff in there and let the dog like paddle in the water or dunk their head in to get the toys out, like anything like that. And she loves swimming. That's awesome. Yeah, I do remember that she hated it before. And I have not read that it's 80-20, but I wouldn't be surprised. I know that right now, while Maddie's older, she can't do a lot physically. So I have to do like more enrichment with her. And I mean, she's having a hard time even moving right now. So we just do some basic obedience stuff where she can still do the click and treat, or I'll do some easy nose work like a snuffle mat with her so that she doesn't have to get up and move. But yeah, with Jade, so one thing we're doing with Jade right now is doing some task work for her service dog. And one of her tasks is to pick up things. And she used to pick things up and then run to her bed and want to chew them. So we had to shape it to where she would pick it up, bring it back to me, and drop it in my hand. And that, we had to like chain that, and it took several months to get her to the point where if I say, can you pick that up for me? She'll pick it up, bring it back, drop it for a treat. But it took a while to figure that out. And yes, Travis, you're right. Mental exercise does tire them out more. The reason for that is when you take your dog on a walk on a leash, then most humans don't walk as fast as a dog needs to walk. So the dogs don't go as fast. or they're not able to go as fast as they need to, unless you're like a marathon runner. Um, so if so when you do the mental work and the nose work, it's like when we read or we're studying. So like if you're studying for a test, or I'm reading an ethology book right now, which is the study of animal behavior, and right now we're learning about ants, which I never knew that ants could be so fascinating with their colonies and the way they work. And I mean, it's amazing. But it tires me out from reading because it's so mentally taxing. So if you think about when you were in school, studying for tests, reading for a while makes you tired. And yes, it does the same thing with a dog. So even just basic training, I was with a dog today and we did 10 minutes of training. When I first showed up, the dog was like super excited and happy. So we started to do some easy basics like sit, hand targeting, watch me, name game, because the dog doesn't know her name yet. And within 10 to 15 minutes, this dog was crashed out on the couch. Um, so yes, mental does tire them out more. Um, and and yeah, and especially in hot weather, you can absolutely do that, um, as well as like do a shorter walk or play fetch in your yard and then do some enrichment and nose work. And that's really good. I have to do that too, mainly because again, I don't like the heat. So unless I'm hiking up in the mountains, I just don't want to be out walking because it's too dang hot. Um, yes, and I read about the queen ant and how the queen is actually, I know I'm not going to say this right, but um, when the queen is born, they're kind of like, it's kind of like being born into royalty. So they already pick like, okay, this is going to be the next queen, and then that queen will build her own colony, to the point where then she can just stay in and kind of boss everyone around, and then like have the next queen. But it was like totally fascinating. I've been really getting into ethology lately, and I'm taking a course in September, from an ethologist that I just love. And so learning a lot about animal behavior, which is like all species, not just dogs. But yeah, it's actually really fascinating to me. So I'm kind of a geek that way. Um, but yes, this book that I'm reading, I would have to go look to give you the name, but we have like a suggested reading list for this course in September. And so it was one of the books on the list, so I started reading it. And um, yeah, I can only read for about half hour to an hour at night, and then I'm done. But then I can go to sleep a lot easier because like I'm mentally drained. So yes, doing nose work, and you've probably heard me um, say this before. In fact, I'm going to actually show you. Um, so I will save my Pupford and Amazon boxes. Well, usually my Pupford boxes are big because I order a lot, but boxes like this size, I'll save, and I have 6. So I will save these like this size, um, and I'll start with 2 boxes, and I'll put like a hot dog in one of them and let the dogs like sniff the 2 boxes and see which one has the hot dog. And then I'll add in another box until I get 6 to 8 boxes. You can put like a piece of cheese, a salmon treat, anything that smells, and let your dog like sniff the boxes to see which, and you'll be able to tell when they hit on the one because it's like they'll sniff and they'll stop, like, oh, I smell something. And then you can like, yeah, good dog, and then open the box and let them have the hot dog. So now we've graduated up to now Jade is, we're doing the nose work, but it's the scent of Well, when I feel like I'm getting a migraine, I have to swab the inside of my mouth with like cotton rolls and then freeze them. And that's how she learns to detect that a migraine's happening, is from the chemical changes. So that's what we're doing now, is having her scent that. But sometimes just for fun, like to her, it's still a game. Um, but sometimes for fun, I'll throw in a hot dog or something, and then the other times we're doing scent. So, um, and Mickey is getting better at not barking in the yard at other dogs when she knows that I'm there. Okay, that's awesome though. And not always. That's totally normal. And yes, it's a challenge. So it's still a challenge for me when my neighbor mows the grass. As soon as I hear his lawnmower, um, I will bring my dogs in because I know they're going to bark at the fence. I know they're going to bark at and he just thinks it's funny. Like he doesn't care, but I care. And because they go crazy with the lawnmower and the weed trimmer. So I just bring them in and I wait till he's done mowing the grass and then I let him back out. Um, and then, yeah, it's more challenging when you let her out and not go with her since she'll bark. And another thing you can do is let her out and start with like 5 seconds. So, like, let her out, and if she's quiet for the first 5 seconds, then go out and reward her and be like, oh, good job, Mickey. And you can call it like good calm, good settle, good quiet, and reward her for that. Um, you could also just walk out with her, toss a handful of kibble into the lawn and say, go hunt, and get her doing that enrichment and that nose work, and then walk away and walk back in, and she's going to be busy doing the nose work in the grass and not even realize that you're not there. So eventually, she'll get it that you don't have to like physically be there, but you're going to be in the house and you're still going to notice when she's not barking. And so she's going to get rewarded for not barking. And then are you doing the flight cue with her? So like when she is barking, are you doing like the retreat um, or the party time to get her to turn the other way and have best party and treats ever? Because then she'll start to learn on her own if they're barking. Then I go this way and I can play in the grass. And so you are doing that. That's good. I'm also doing this with my sister's 4-month-old puppy. That's awesome. Your sister's going to be so grateful to you for teaching that. I had another trainer one time, and this is great advice, that every dog should learn the relaxation protocol, the look at that, the engage, disengage, and a flight cue as basic behaviors. And so I actually teach those in my intermediate classes now, just because there's not enough time in puppy class to do that. But I agree, like just teaching a dog how to retreat, how to stay calm, and how to just look at something and stay calm and not react is, those three basic things can really solve a lot of behavioral problems. So the fact that you're teaching that to your sister's puppy, I think is awesome. And you did yeah, and however whatever you call it or however you train it, like a stronger recall is perfect. It's more or less the same thing. Walk away does sound a little boring, which is why I like to call it like party time or, I had one girl call it fiesta. So she spoke Spanish. So to her, it was like, fiesta. And the dog would come running for like best party and treats ever. So those boxes back over there. Um, okay, so it's almost 7:30. And since there's no more questions yet, let's do a drawing for the treats. And then if there's any more questions after that, then I'm happy to answer them. If not, then I will see you next week. So By the way, Jade is getting better at picking stuff up now. I have a container of treats upstairs in the bathroom, so at night when I'm doing my routine, like I'll drop a comb or I'll drop face cream, and I'll say, "Oh, oops, can you pick that up for me?" And so now Jade goes up there like, "Oh, we get to play our nightly game, and I get treats because she knows there's treats right there." Um, so now that she's getting better, we're going to start working on picking up pieces of paper because my goal is to have Jade actually draw the name out of the bowl so that she gets to pick who wins instead of me like picking in the bowl. I just thought it would be a cute trick to have Jade do it. Um, okay, so tonight's winner is Veronica Swallow from Montana. So congratulations, Veronica. I think you've won before, so you probably know the drill. You're going to email hello@pupford.com and let them know what kind of treats you want. And then I will email them as well and tell them that you're the winner, and then you can choose what kind of treats you want. Question: can you get rid of foxtails? I don't know. I don't know if you can. I know when I worked at the vet, almost a couple times a week we were having to get foxtails out of dogs' ears. So they can be bad here too. I think it's just something you deal with. I don't know if there's a spray or something. I know up here we have them like in the mountains or a lot of the places where people go hiking. So I honestly don't know how to get rid of them. And it would be hard to put something over your dog's ears so they don't get the foxtails. But they can get them between their toes too. However, you can put like the booties on your dog, but that doesn't help you with the ears because sometimes when the foxtails get down in the ears, we actually have to knock the dog out and get really down deep to get the foxtail out. And yeah, I've never heard of a dog eating one. So I don't know what would happen. I don't know if it gets stuck or if it'll just pass. But I know if they get them in the ear, we do have to get them out. And then, in the paws, they're a little bit easier to get out. But if they're down in the ear canal, it is harder. So, okay. Looks like that's all the questions we have. So thanks everybody for joining tonight, and thanks for all your questions. Great questions tonight. I will see you back next Wednesday at same time. I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen with my other dog. And when she gets to the point where she's in pain and can't move or stand up, I'm going to have to make that decision. If it happens to be on a Wednesday, I might postpone next week's live until Thursday or Friday. We're just kind of taking it day by day. I don't know. She has really good days and then really bad days. So I thought that I was going to have to call the vet tonight and have him come. And then yesterday she got up by herself. She was walking around. So we just never know. So if I move it to a different day in the next couple of weeks, that's why. But we'll still have one. And yeah, Travis, that is totally normal to be a worrisome father. I am too. Like I'm almost like a helicopter mom with my dogs. I worry about every little bump or lump. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to go to the vet and see, make sure it's not cancer or make sure it's nothing bad. So yeah, that's totally normal. So yeah, thank you. This is the worst part about having dog. Every time I go through this, I think I'm not getting another dog. I can't go through this because my dogs are like my kids. And Maddie was my second service dog. I've had her for about 6 years. She's like my gentle giant. And it's just hard watching them grow old, and especially when they're sick. She's got IMHA. She's got arthritis in her back. Um, oh, hi, Renee. Um, yeah, so Travis, she has IMHA, which is an autoimmune disorder. So she's been on prednisone, and the prednisone has masked the arthritis in her back and the back legs. Um, so now that her blood cell count is back to normal, now they're weaning her off the prednisone, but then when she's not on pred, then her back starts to get sore, and she can't stand up on her own. You know, she's 70 pounds, and so she's a big pit bull. So she can't stand up on her own, and then when I try and help her, sometimes she cries because it hurts. You know, vets don't ever like to keep dogs on prednisone for too long because then there's side effects. So, yeah, and Karen, I say that every time. And so, Nicole, interestingly, I had one of my dogs pass away, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not. And everybody says, oh, you've got to have 3 pit bulls. Oh, you always have 3. And I said, I don't care. I'm only going to have 2. I can't do this. And because I worked in rescue, our ranch manager, it was only like a month after Piglet died. And he goes, come look what I brought you back from the res. And I'm like, oh no, it's too soon. I'm done. Can't do it. And I went and looked at Jade, and I thought, well, she is cute. I'll take her home for a weekend. She can play with my dog, but I'm not doing it. It's too soon. I took her home for one weekend, and that was it. It's like, oh, yep, I'm keeping her. And she has actually turned out to be an amazing dog. But it still doesn't change the fact that Maddie is like my baby, and she's flown with me twice to Virginia, both times. Maybe, I think she went to Texas once and then Virginia, or she went to Virginia twice. I can't remember totally. But yeah, she's flown with me, and she's amazing. So yeah, it's really tough. So, but you know, when I read in the community today, somebody was saying, you know, that when their dog got sick, they said, this will be my last dog because I just can't handle them being sick, and I totally get that. It's hard. But if you look back on all the years and all the really good times that you have with them, it really does outweigh the bad. And having to go through this is just part of life. It's just part of the cycle. And I figure that my dogs give me so much. And she's been such a good job, such a great dog that I will help her through this part as much as I can. She's on pain meds. I pick her up and carry her outside. I'm just trying to keep her comfortable. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. And when I think that she's in pain and not having a good quality of life, then I usually call it. I don't believe in letting dogs suffer. So I figure that's the least I can do for them, is to let them go peacefully and before they're in too much pain. So yeah, thank you all for your comments. It is kind of a sad time, and I will probably be a wreck after she goes, so I may have to postpone a live one Wednesday. So if I postpone it, you guys that are here tonight will know why, and we'll I will, you know, do it eventually sometime that week. So yeah, I actually got a really good picture of her. Have you seen the somebody bought me a t-shirt that says, I'm sure you guys have heard the saying, when I was in my darkest hour, I reached out my hand and God gave me a paw, or God sent a paw. And so I've always remembered that. And so I got a really good picture of her paw in my hand. And then I'm sure I'll put it up in my Facebook group. So yeah, so Cindy, I'm not very tech savvy. Um, if I can post a picture of her, I will. Or you can go to my Facebook page, which is just Tracy Matson, Tracy with an I, and Matson with an S-O-N. And I've got pictures of her, especially recently, because my other dogs will go lay with her. I think they know something's going on, so they go comfort her and stuff like that. So, and Travis, I do believe that. I know that she, along with all my other dogs, will be waiting on the other side. Um, I believe that when they pass, my dad's already over there. He's taking care of them for me until I get there. But it is going to be like such a joyous reunion when I get to be with them again. And they won't be in pain, is the way I look at it. They won't be in pain. So, um, yeah. And dogs are your everything, and my dogs are very in tune to me, and so they can tell when I'm upset, they can tell when I'm sad, they can tell when I'm mad. Um, they are they're very, very in tune, and I think they're the best emotional support for everybody that we can have. She is the large blue nose pit, so she's the biggest one. Um, Daphne's the smaller brown one. Jade, you've probably seen. She's the black one with white feet. And then I have a foster dog now, Willy Wonka. He's the one in the wheels that can't use his back feet. Maddie's the big one with the cropped ears. So that's the one she is. So um, anyway, yeah, we're just taking it day to day and trying to keep her comfortable. She is on pain meds and muscle relaxers, so hopefully those will help her. Um, So yeah, thank you all for your support and kind words, and I'll keep you updated. And everybody have a great week, and I will see you all hopefully next Wednesday. Um, and we'll just keep things rolling. So thanks so much, you guys, and have a great night, great weekend, and I'll see you next week.